Let me move this over. All right, people. How's it going this evening? Sure when you might get this to pull up, but there is something that I wanted to go over, and like I said, I get asked this question a lot. So until I see him pull in here, let's. I help him out because I think I know where his problem is, and so I want to be able to do it and get the confirmation, and then not only that, for anybody else that may be watching, you guys, if you have that issue as well, it is something that you'll to work out, right? If what I think it is, it's a really simple thing, right? Especially the stuff he's telling me he's already tried. So hopefully it'll help him and be able to, or he'll be able to put that in to play whenever he gets to that point again. Actually, let's close all this stuff down, didn't I? Everybody wants to play Silent Hill now, don't they? I love Silent Hill though, so good to see. Good to see you getting some play there. Let's see. Okay, okay. Or oh, that's what I meant to do. Can we maybe the not? And somewhere here. Let it down a little bit. I should be able to hear everything. Making sure, making sure. Right. Move this way. Okay, I think we're set here. still got more stuff to go through. All right, so uh, this one's pretty simple. So there won't be too much to go as far as like arrangement goes, but it's a nice little energetic something. All right. I'm gonna give him some time here. Like I don't want to do it and then he misses it, so I'll give him some time. So there he is. Haddockstein is in the building. Appreciate you stopping by, man. I was just saying we were gonna wait on you. All right, so wait for this, and then I'll go from there. But yeah, bass is pretty easy to. It's pretty easy to mess up. Um, and a lot of times when I say it, people are like, "Oh, well, I want the bass louder," and I'm like, "Look, might run into some trouble." That's all I'm saying. I can't I can't say how, you know, but at the same time, like that's probably and I'll state it a million more times if I have to. It's probably the biggest issue that I hear when people are usually talking to me when it comes to like mixing hip hop beats and stuff like that, right? It's just bass. It's hitting, but it's there's too much. It's not clean, right? And so I try my best to like kind of explain it and why you may want to do it like that. But I always say at the end, hey, look, you don't want it like that, right? And you want to make this thing louder or whatever, but it, there's a reason why I like to explain not only like my process when I'm doing it, but the tools itself, right? Because not all the time. Okay, let's say we're working with bass. We decide that we're gonna put a compressor or we're gonna put an EQ, right? We're gonna EQ it and then we're going to compress it, right? Because you heard you can, create a warmer sound or whatever. So you EQ and then you compress it, right? Think about it. If I EQ, I drop out the parts that you know that don't sound good or whatever. Bam. And I go and compress it. Then what I'm doing is taking all the stuff that I made sound good, right? All the stuff that's now sticking out, that's not peaking, it's not been cut, and I'm pushing it back towards the stuff I just cut, which puts you right back in the same place almost, depending on how far you end up pushing this thing, and you end up like right back in the same place, right? So in this instance, you may want to compress first and get the consistency, right? Then go and make the EQ, right? So just because you learn in one situation that it's, EQ before compression, and that's why you see a lot of these arguments, right, on forums. Should I EQ and then compress, or should I compress and then EQ? Well, if you understand the tools and what it's used for, right, and you know what you're looking for, then that will start to determine the order in which you start to do things and why you're doing it, right? That's why there's no rules, right? But there are certain guidelines and the tools function a certain way. So if you're trying to achieve a certain sound, what is going on here? Did it like really freeze? Um, or some people use a limiter as opposed to a compressor, but that'll go first. They'll break that in, and then they start, the EQ. Um, and then they may even compress after. It just depends on what that looks like once it's done. Um, let's. I wanted to get like an actual beat that I have. That way, it's a little easy to start from. Then, because if I just pull this up and find a kick and a bass, go from there, you don't get the real sounds like with everything as well. So the best option would be find something that did. This isn't bad. It's just how is it taking forever? Well, like I know I have like complete, and these libraries are huge, so it takes a minute to kind of load some of the libraries depending. Like if I have Choir Omnia used on here, it's like 80 gigs the library, so might take a little time. And then if you have several, if I have the Sunburst Deluxe and the like, these are 50, 60, 70 gig libraries, it's gonna take a second. Um, could I have like bounced these? Yeah, but I don't like to because if I ever come back and I want to change something or whatever it may be, I can do that. Here we are.
This is another Ron production.
All right. Oops. Grab that cheese. Let's go here. Here. And this would be perfect because these are our old days, alright? So let's take a that old, but you get it. You get it. This is pre universal audio. But here we go. So here's our kick, here's our bass. First thing that we want to do, right, prior to any of this, is we want to make sure we can hear the kick and the bass. Yo, Gilgamesh in the building. Appreciate you stopping by, man. How you doing this evening? So first thing we want to do, so we have something like this. Okay, in your speaker, you may be going, oh, the bass is bassing, but you can't hear the kick and the bass, right? This 808 play nice together. Okay, obviously the bass is drowning out the kick right now, and you can't hear the kick is clean. So first thing we want to do is gain stage. That's the first thing. Whenever we do mixes, what do I tell you? In your pre-mix, do 0 unity. Keep all your faders 0 level, and all you're gonna do is control the input gain. That's the signal going into the mixer. And if you don't have an input gain knob available for each track or each sound that you're using, then go to the first insert slot on your mixer for each track, and you're gonna have to put a gain plugin, okay? Something like this, and control, right, the level of that sound coming in, right? Hear these two very nicely, okay? When it comes to low end, when it comes to sub frequencies, you don't need a lot of sub frequency to get any impact, okay? We're too worried about this part of it, and we're trying to make sure you hear it, right? We don't use 808s, right? We don't use bass lines to necessarily hear what's going on, right? We do it for the feeling, okay? Do it for the feeling, okay? As long as you can feel that coming through your speakers, as long as you can feel that, you're not really you're not caring about whether there's a melody playing with this thing or not. Okay? Okay, so when everything else is, as long as that bass is, and I in the notes seem like at least it matches up, you're not caring about the rest of this. Alright? You're not caring about the rest of that. Right? So, but you can still feel that rumble, right? So even if I come in here, boom, boom, let's say we cut into this, and we're probably gonna lose some volume for this, so and then let's return that. Right? Boom. Now, if I go over here, I'm show you a few things just so you know what you get what I'm saying. If I come here and start boosting this, rumble's gonna get really, really, really strong, right? And this, while it may sound good in say your studio monitors, the moment you go put this in the car or someone has like a sub or something that can pick up these sub frequencies really well, you're gonna start hearing this uncontrollable rumble. Okay, you're probably already, depending on where you are, but in headphones you're not really gonna hear that either. But you do notice that you can kind of hear the low end a little better. We're not. Don't choose bass because we're trying to hear. We just want to feel, right? So, first things first. Bigger. First things first, okay? We want to roll off, okay? Speakers, shelf speakers, okay? 50, 40 hertz. Past that, you're not picking up that sub frequency sub unless you have studio monitors, right? Or you have a really nice, expensive sub, okay? And you don't need much sub frequencies to get an effect. So what we can do is, what I like to do is take it up to 32, okay? So right here, you can start seeing where it's rolling off the volume, okay? So yes, these sub frequencies are still present. If you own a sub, right, and you would like to benefit from this, it's there, right? But most tracks, a lot of them will cut like 50 or 40, and you can still see that it's still picking up down to 20 hertz, just not as much. But see, people hear that and then they go, oh no, now it doesn't sound as, in my speakers. Right. But you can see it's still here. And when you go play this back in a speaker that has some color, because your studio monitors, you want them as flat of a frequency response as you can get, right? Because you want to hear things accurately. So in your studio monitors, it's not supposed to sound like boom. You don't want that, right? So cut. Let's remove this. Okay, so we're gonna do that, right? And then start to look for in this case, you can boost it if you would like, but 9 times out of 10, what I do, nothing, right? Why? Because it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot at all, all right? Instead, I'll go find my kit. So here's our kit. Okay. Drums kit. Here. Okay, so you can see our kick here. Here, we just get a full eraser here. All right, so here's our kick, not mixed. Here's our bass, not mixed. Okay, so I'm gonna do this live on channel 5 for you. So let's mute this really quick. Let's go with our kick. So we know that we have this bass this 808, the sub bass, and we have our kick bass or kick drum, right? So we're gonna make room in those sub frequencies for our bass, which means our kick, I don't care how hard it hits and how much thump there is at the bottom, we don't need it, okay? Because it's going to clash with our 808. So let's take that up to about 60. Okay, good starting point for a few reasons. One, by this point, you don't hear that low end thump in the kick. Okay, it's gone. Okay, two, at about 70 on to 90 is where we're gonna find that punch in our in our kick. So in this area, this is where it kind of simulates the thump, but it doesn't want to like shatter your speakers. Okay, you get that like oomph, but you don't get the shake. All right, but you get that punch, right? Which is why we name it that. So we don't need this. Okay, which is the more you turn this up, is definitely gonna attempt to try and to speakers. We're looking for this. Okay, there's a difference between that. Okay, so technically we're layering these two sounds. Okay, so you gotta think of it in terms of a layer, right? If I'm gonna take I don't know, I'm gonna make a night sky and it's like the full orangish whatever, it's layers. Some things are gonna be present and some things are gonna be hidden behind other colors, right? Same thing. So, well, we don't need this thump. We're going to create, right? Boom. So let's roll off at 60. Play it back. So here's our kick. Now, let's turn this off. And immediately, as soon as I turn in this bass, listen to how much better the 808 sounds. Low frequencies. It sounds really, really clean. It pops through. Okay? Not a care in the world right now. There's not a care in the world. So, alright. Also, even as we just made this one little move, can you hear the kick really, really cleanly? And then you can still feel the rumble, the bass. Most people, right? As soon as I all kinds of crazy. So plug in here. I have a gain knob, so I don't need to do this, but that was just an example for you guys. Right, so they're trying to do this as loud as the kick is. They're trying to make their bass. But what happens is what you're hearing in your headphones is like the mid-range. Okay, let me watch me cooking. What they're hearing is this. They're trying to make this sound as loud as the kick. What they don't understand is this can get so much louder than the kick, right? This over here can get a whole lot louder than your kick. It is unnecessary. It is unnecessary to turn your bass up this loud. It is unnecessary, all right? This is what I get, but I always leave it to them. Hey, look, it's up to you. If you want it louder, go for it. But when you're mixing a track, okay, we are mixing ingredients, aka our sounds here. We want it to blend. So what we balance. We don't need bass heavy. We don't need treble heavy. We don't need mid heavy. We need balance. If you're not gonna create that balance, I promise you the whole thing falls apart, right? The whole thing falls apart, right? You don't put enough flour in that batter, what's gonna happen? All right, like you gotta create it there. So I think I got this up too. No, don't. So again, I have my kick set at a particular level. I normally, right, or if you look it up, between -6 and -9 is about as loud as you're gonna get the kick, right? It's a starting point, right? So when you see my kick, we're right in between that area, right? Now for your kick and your bass to play together, this is something you use your ear on. So let's go back to this. I'm going to slowly turn down my 808 till I can hear my kick drum clearly and I can hear my bass drum clearly. At that point, we're at a good level, right? So I can hear the kick come through very cleanly and I can still hear my bass, right? Done. All right. So look at where we are. All right, it's just between like -9, -12. I personally like to start at the bottom of things. So if they say set your kick between -6, -9, I choose the -9 route, right? I usually take that route, right? So for our 808s, any bass line, bass guitar, it doesn't matter. I start at -12. It's a good starting point, okay? Again, we're already close there anyway. So bam, here you go. Now, in your speakers, as you turn this up, the rumble, okay, is gonna be on par, loudness wise, with your kick. You say, or if you hear some producers or engineers talking about making something sound just as loud as something else, we're not talking about the actual meters. We're talking about how you perceive it. All right, we're talking about how you perceive it. So in your headphones, unfortunately, when it comes to low end, you're not gonna really be able to kind of experience that. In your studio monitors, you're definitely going to notice this right now. Even though the bass volume meter is not as loud as the kick, it's there. You perceive it as being just as loud as the kick, right? So again, kind of like when I talk about the snare, people say, I want my snare and my kick the same volume. Okay, what you're talking about is perceived volume. We're not talking about the actual volume, right? Because if you were to do that, okay, now your snare is like really crazy loud, because when it goes to bam, the attack off of that snare is that's a harsh sound, right? When you think about places where the snare kind of lives, okay, you're dealing with those high frequencies. Why would you want to turn them up as loud as as loud as possible? You don't even turn your hats up like that, right? Come on now. So so what you're looking for is a perceived loudness, right? What we're looking for is to blend and make every sound be heard just as loud, right? So again, as soon as you find that point, just stop. It sounds like the kick and the snare, as they're playing right now, is about the same loudness. I should stop right there, right? As a perfect level to go. Now, hearing it out of your speakers, people don't like it. As soon as it gets quieter, they go, oh my God, what is happening? You might want to keep your day job. That's all I'm saying. But all we're doing is balancing this stuff. So let's go back, okay? Boom. All right. We made some decisions here. We got our kick. We rolled this off. We didn't even do anything else yet. So since we lost the thump in our kick, right? What we do on one side, we do the opposite on the other. So since we made a cut, then we need to make a boost somewhere to make up for what we lost, okay? I don't use science and physics. What's that? Yeah, sure. I'm sure that just came and hit you right in your brain, didn't it? So let's go to the other side and try and balance out this equation. I like like that. I like that punch, okay? It's not the rumble, it's not the thump, it's not the low end, right? Because we're not looking for that in the 808, right? We want out of the kick. So we're going to boost this up a little bit. So whenever the 808 and the kick combo hit, the punch that we feel is coming from the kick, but the rumble that we're going to feel, the low end, is coming from the 808. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? So, let's go a little further. Here, it's the hollow box sound, right? We don't like that. So, and this area, anytime you find this area, I don't care what sound, vocals, drums, snare, hats, pianos, whatever. Anytime you cut here, it tightens up the sound, right? Okay, which is also great because as you're finding these, you start noticing that, hey, my snare, right? Let's line these up together. My snare kind of lives somewhere here. We just kind of started dropping here, right? We started dropping here. So what's that gonna do? Well, when the snare hits, it sounds clean. It sounds clean. There's nothing messing with it, right? So, all right, cool. Yeah, man. Let's say we go over here and you don't have to, but sometimes if you feel like your kick is still getting lost, then you may want to come over here, find out where that the attack or the snap in the kick is, and you can boost it to give it just a little more potential of cutting through whatever's going on. In this case, our 808 here, right? So say we just a little bit, right? Goes a long way. That little bit goes a long way, right? Higher frequencies oscillate faster than the lower frequencies, right? So as soon as you start boosting those higher frequencies against those lower frequencies, right? Like a hot knife through butter, all right? It's gonna start making itself known, more present, right? Bam. All right. So we got our kick. We like the way our kick sounds. We're gonna forget the low pass, but in real project, don't forget. It's just an example. So don't forget, you high pass, you also low pass, right? Because you got things that live there, okay? And you want that stuff to be just as clean as your low end, right? So let's go back. And now we get to our bass. Okay. So you can put these two up side by side. It's good practice, all right? EQ for kick and bring out the EQ for your bass. Put it side by side. Alright. I'm gonna laugh at you and call you basic because you're trying to see what's going on, right? Now, let's see. Take your low pass, because of course we got things that live up here and we don't want them present, right? So when it comes to 808s, I get it. 808s are like way out here and you're gonna start cutting in like, oh my god, it's kind of, and you want to pull back and go all the way back here, and I promise you, you're gonna ruin it. Why? Because you have things that live here. These have to be the questions that you ask, right? If did I miss it? Did I miss it? Stop worrying about just the solo. Put everything back into play and listen. Did you miss it? Bypass is low pass, you did. Did you miss it? Did you hear anything? Did it sound like you started losing your bass? Any of it? No, right? But the little energy that is here, as soon as you do that, it'll clear up these other areas, and you go, okay, bam, all right, cool, we got it, right? So let's go back. So what I like to do, take it to about 1K or 1.5K and roll it off, right? Because a lot of your melodic instruments, right, start that their fundamentals there. Your piano, right, 1 to 3K, vocals, brass, whatever you're talking about, right? Leave that available for those sounds to have their own space, right? And other things will thank you for it as well, right? Other things will thank you for it as well, right? So, okay, we got that part. Now we get over here and we want to do something like this. Okay, again, we're too worried about what it sounds like, right? We're too worried about trying to hear the bass, and we're not trying to hear bass. We just want to. So, what I do is roll. What this is gonna do, you think that the volume is getting lower by some, in a way, yes, as we're starting to turn that down, but what you're also noticing is the bass tightens up. Tighter bass, more consistency, not a bother. Okay, not a bother. So you got to get this stuff in check, right? So we roll this off, still have low end. It's just not a lot of low end, but we don't need a lot. We just need a little, because it gets uncontrollable really fast, right? Now I come over here, I look at my kick. I'm over at 89 hertz. So what I'm gonna do is go to 89. And then what I'm gonna do is, don't go crazy with it, okay? But maybe a dB or two. Smaller, okay? And all this is so that the kick can breathe, okay? We haven't done anything fancy yet. It's just EQ. So when I bring the kick in, bam. Now, people, they tell you, like, if you want bass to be like audible or translate on smaller speakers, somewhere that's like 300 hertz to maybe like 400 or 500, okay? You can go boost over here. You can confirm it's true. Does that mean you actually need to do it? No. Take it case by case. Go put it in some smaller speakers. Do you hear it? If you hear it, leave it alone, right? But what I can tell you is once you get over here to about that 200 area, 300, you usually get some mud. See how close, how easy this would be to mess up? If you came over here to 300 because someone said 3 to 5, you said, I'm gonna start at 3. And you put a bell curve and you boost it at 3, well, you're going into that bad area too. This will also mess you up. So typically, I don't like messing with the range as far as boosting goes, unless it's like a bass guitar. It's a lot cleaner. It's just as energetic, but it's a bit more consistent in what's going on there. Here, this stuff is just kind of all over the place. So I find this area, I like to drop this as well. Whenever you find those boxy, hollow, weak kind of areas, what do you get? You get a tighter sound. Oh no, the volume. Well, that's why you return it back, right? It's at -15. We had it at -12. That means we have 3 decibels, in which, over here to my kick like a dummy. That means we have 3 decibels, all right? In which we can crank this thing back up to where we had it. Pull it down a little more. Okay, so could do now is bypass. This is what it sounds like before. Versus now. So you have a much tighter bass now, and you have a that plays well with the kick. Okay, bam. And again, you don't need to turn this up to match the volume of the kick, right? From there, let's say you did want that, right? So let's take this. Now you have something that's still kind of audible, right? We created those dips, we tightened up this sound, right? Because without doing that stuff, you're gonna get something crazy. You're gonna get something crazy. That probably sounds crazy to you right now. After listening to all that, listening to it tight and clean, and then go and just remove this high pass filter we put on the bass and let all that volume come right back in. You see exactly what I'm talking about, right? So now let's say this is what you wanted, okay? One more. Okay, so you take that and then you decide, all right, I want to do like side chain. All right, go in here and always, there we go. All right, switch it over, bam, take the kick, and let's set a ratio. Let's do a 2-to-1. 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1. Experiment. What works for you, right? We'll start lowering this threshold, and as it starts to trigger, this is the compression. So now, depending on how hard this is being triggered, that will translate, right? The further we push this down, the further you're seeing the volume of the bass being pushed, kick hits, and it's just for that brief second. And when the kick is gone, the bass returns back to where it's at. And this is why I say, like, trying to get that volume up there with the kick like that by meters is usually a bad idea. So you'll hear the kick, and then once that kick's not playing anymore, everything is just loud as hell all over again, right? Might have a semi problem if you didn't go and do this work, right? But it's easily fixable, right? You just turn the volume back down. But if you didn't do any of this, try to do the same thing, you've accomplished nothing except for more problems, because there's still the two sounds don't play well nice together, right? They're still taking up the same exact frequency spaces, right? And the only thing that's happening is when the side chain hits, the volume is being lowered for the 808, but the thump and the kick is still there, and this, that, and the other. So when these two sounds go to hit, it still doesn't sound tight, it still doesn't sound clean. So come in here, bam. You may have to make a few cuts, and that's okay. It's okay. And you can take this with you. I like starting any bass that I have at -12. -12, it just works. Okay, every beat, and then when it's time to actually move the faders and all that, I'll probably, if it feels like it's a little too strong after I bounce it out, I'll probably try -15 next. And it's either or, depending on the sound, right? The energy, this, that, and the other. tends to work really well. Now, let's say we got this together the way we want, blah blah blah. Right? Let's take out the side chain here. But let's take a look at our bass here. So when that's coming in here, we're kind of getting a bit of a spike, right? So the next thing you might be thinking is, well, and this isn't a big one, but in some cases, depending, sometimes you're playing up here and then you start playing down here, and you may notice there's a big change in the volume of those notes, right, that are being played, right, because of the energy being given off. So you want to come in and you want to wrong compressor. You come in and I guess we can use this. That's fine. Come in here, boom, switch it to compressor, and you want to using compression for is consistency. Okay, so when I get these sounds, if I'm playing a piano and maybe the couple of chords that I play, I got them and they're right at -18 or something, and then there's another chord that plays and it was a little dramatic and it jumped up to like -15. To me, that's a little difference in volume, right? That's kind of a big difference to go from something play a little quieter to jumping up 3 dB, right? So I may want to compress that to make it more consistent. All right, so and you have options. I'm going to explain those options. Okay, so we can come in here for compression for synth bass. I like starting with 6-1. Okay, just a little more of a harder compression to help me kind of contain this. Okay, so then I'll come in again. We want to kind of take that rule and don't want to go past 6 dBs of attenuation or compression, because once you start doing that, it starts kind of sounding flat, and you may not want that. Okay, you could definitely come in here and do it. There would be a particular reason for this. Okay, in the case of 808s, that's what it takes to get the sound. Go for it, right? Because we're not here to hear, right? But sometimes you do get those 808 basses where the low end is just super, super heavy, and you're not really, like, say you're using the 808 as you would some kind of melodic instrument, you may want to do that at that point. If it's boom, 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 like, you got your 808s kind of coming in doing a thing, yes. But a lot of times, it's just background, right? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, in that case, no, we're not trying to hear it, but we do want to get a consistency in volume, right? In other cases where the 808 may be acting as melodic as, say, the piano or something like that, right? And it's hitting like super frequently, then you may want that a little bit. So then taking that lower end and pushing it down towards kind of meeting that area where you're actually able to kind of hear it, then you can get that. But in doing so, just understand that now this doesn't hit as hard as you would like, because you have squashed this part of it down to meet the other part, so that you can get that consistency to actually hear melodically your 808. So there's trade-offs here, but that's something you can do. But once you start getting past that -6, so here we are like -7, you can tell that the bass is starting to sound squashed, a bit more flat. It loses its dynamics. Okay, so I like to start at about -3 is a good place, up until about -6, and then I leave it, right? What we're looking for here is we're watching this thing go down, and we're just looking for the consistency, right? It barely jumped, whereas when I was here, when it jumped, it started getting up to here, right? Now we got a bit more consistency in it, so every time this hits, it's kind of at the same volume, right? So you can make sure all the notes are being heard as equally, right? Doesn't matter, the lower notes, the higher notes, whatever, right? And we found this consistency here. Okay, bam. You can take the route of, come on, where are you? You can take the route of saturation, okay? In this case, you're probably, it doesn't necessarily matter. You can check it out and see, but typically, if I'm using saturation, I put it first. Doesn't mean it can't go after, right? Or last somewhere or whatever, but typically first, right? In here, and as we drive, right, as we push the volume on this, you're adding more energy into this sound, okay? So it's gonna give you what? It's gonna give you warmer lows, right? More energetic lows, and it's gonna give you more energetic highs, right? Or those quote unquote upper harmonics, right? All it's doing is exciting this, right? And you can get more technical with some, and you can start creating, right? And be like, I want to leave this alone, but I just wanna increase this and make it more energetic, right? We saturated this, and I just want to kind of control, right? You can get more intricate, more surgical with some, but it's just driving, right? Especially if you're using something like here we go. Especially if you're using something like this, right? You don't really have control. All you can do is drive that sound in, right? Until it starts getting past the 0 mark, and then you start getting that saturation, right? Or the subtle distortion, only to be found in analog equipment, because digital distortion is not subtle, right? And then we can bring this down. What you will notice when using saturation is, again, once you start to pass that 0, it does kind of act as a limiter. So that's another way you can get consistency in a particular sound or whatever, right? You can do that. So when you, I got both of them going. Whoops, my bad. But when you have these, can we get a reset? Default setting. There we go. So as we drive this, hear that. But you also notice what? Consistency. I'm not saying you gotta go this far, but once you start seeing that consistency and you start hearing the change, you're pretty much good, right? Bam. Then, right, and that's why I say usually do it first, because once it makes it more energetic, then go and put your EQ. And you got a more energetic version of, your stuff here. Sorry, I had that up loud. Alright, so now you have a more consistent hitting 808, right? Now it's more energetic, the low end, whatever, right? So this is another thing. If you're trying to get, maybe you got an EQ, whatever, you just feel like it's not really cutting, or you some more energy. That's what saturation does. Saturation is going to add more energy into the sound, right? By driving the signal. So this is another thing. You have compression. Maybe you already have something that's super energetic, and you're like, this is a crazy sounding 808, right? It's just right. Okay, I don't need to put this through saturation, but I still need to control this. So let's do compression, right? You can do it that way. And then some people, and I used to do this as well, so I am some people. Some people just use the limiter, right? So let's set our ceiling at 0, and then let's boost our gain up. And then as soon as we pass that 0 mark, it's coming up there, huh? You can see the limiter getting triggered, but we're way up there. I don't know how to control how much you can see here, but let's say we bring it down a little bit. And now you can see the limiter is being triggered, and now it's gonna stop the sound from going past there, right? And so you can push in, drive the signal in through the ceiling till you get that's a little more consistent every time it hits. From there, and you can your EQ, but again, that would be like saturation, right? We would put that first and then EQ. Okay, and bam, it's loud. It's about to clip, but with everything right, we turn the volume, etc., right? You can. That's not an issue. Yeah, so those are some ways that you can do it. Usually for a limiter, there's not a way to turn the volume, and in that case, your only other option is you're gonna have to move the fader. You're just gonna have to, right? But can't move the fader. If everything's supposed to remain in 0 unity while you're working, it's either going to be plug in after, return the volume back after the limiter, then go into EQ, or right. So those are 3 ways: limiting, compressing, saturation, that you can kind of control and get the bass to be more consistent. Because a lot of times we might start, up here, but then we might, and it happens. Sometimes our bass, we go backwards, right? And so we might get something where you're playing up, it's more energetic, and as you're going down, okay, you see volume wise, right, it may not be stuff on, so but it may not hit, and you hear I'm slamming it, but it's just how it is. Okay, so depending on the notes, and again, that's something you watch and you say, okay, I'm getting spikes, bam, drop the compression on it. I think that pretty much kind of covers. And again, it's just one of those things where you have to ask yourself some questions, and then depending on what you're looking for or problems you may be hearing, it may call for different things to kind of resolve that. All right. So a lot of times, if I'm using bass, I will attempt to put like saturation if it's already something that's very heavy on the energy. Then I will attempt to compress first, and then I'll go in and EQ, checking first before I do any of that I'm already having like consistency in it, right? So I could rule a few things out. If it's already really consistent, but I want to get like some more out of it, then saturation is gonna be what I look for. If, like I said, there's a lot of energy in it already, then compression may be what I'm looking for, right? But these are things that you kind of have to ask, and then understanding those tools, how it works, so that you know what you're doing and how you're affecting the sound, and you'll you'll get it right every time. Biggest thing, right? Just happens to be it. See this right here? See what I did? See what I did? Even me, even past me, same thing. And I'm telling you what you want to do, right? I'm telling you that ain't what you want to do. Don't be the old me, all right? Don't be the old me. And like I said, this is making that space for the kick, but I also turned this up right here, which, It did work, but it kind of stopped from making this as tight as it could be, right? So I at least did what I had to, right? Same thing I'm teaching guys, right? Did the same thing. We rolled off, etc., etc. Except for here, I kind of boosted, but not too much, right? Not too much, and then I made a cut here. So here, it's not too bad sounding, right? This just sounds better. It just sounds better, right? Because I don't have this low end kind of there, making itself more present with the kick when it's already kind of there, right? And it's not like we like cut it off because the roll off starts after, right? So it's not like we did anything. So once I had it together and it was like cool, and I tightened it, all I needed to do was bring the volume back up if I lost any volume, and I would have been good. I'd have been great. But what I did was, so I gotta control that low end of the bass. Yeah, and but here's the thing, right? When we're working in our headphones or we're working from our monitors, sometimes where we get messed up is the volume and the way it sounds, and the way that these speakers are made. Right, studio monitor headphones, studio monitor speakers. They're built with trying to get accuracy, right? The best accuracy we can get. So they're flat. If you look at a chart for the headphones you're buying, the low end, like you might see a little boost somewhere, but it's about as close to zero, right? And the better the speakers are at getting close to zero, probably the more expensive they're going to be because you're going to get the most true to life like reading, right? Basically it means no color. So if you go and say I mix beats on my Beats by Dre's, right? Unless you have the ones that are like meant for you to mix, I think he has a version, right? It's like $300. Unless you have that, everything you're gonna hear is colored, bass boosted, all of this stuff, and you're gonna go in there and you're gonna make mistakes unless you've done this on enough sources to understand that once the bass starts sounding like this, it's perfect, leave it alone. But most people aren't going to do that, and most people's ears aren't trained, right, to like hear that and know that that's the ceiling, right? They don't do that. They're going to well, I can base this out, so I'm gonna do that, and you run into trouble. So the biggest thing, all the info, where to cut this, that, and the other means nothing if your ears do not detect it. If they don't understand it. If they don't understand it, that's it. Right? When I play this back through my speakers, I'm not gonna hear booming coming out the speakers, right? But I'm gonna feel it just a little bit, hear it just a little bit, and knowing that that's the translation in my speakers, and that's as far as it goes, right? And I got 6.5 woofers. Okay, they're not the eights, right? But close enough. And so what I'm saying is the way we hear things, especially in the headphones and stuff like that, it's a little different. And that's why a lot of times I'll make things too, and then I'll send it. Hey, could you play this back in your stereo? Tell me what it's like, right? Sometimes you might have to check several things. You put it in your car, you put it here, you put it there, and you still might need to have a friend listen to it, right? Hey, I'm going to send you this. Let me know if anything's out of place, right? They put it in, they come back and say, "Hey, man, this is sounding fire. That bass is hitting." Okay, we're done. We're done. All right. Maybe find a couple more people, see if they get the same thing, but we're done. But have people who um who make music. So you could always hit me up or something like that, or a few other people and then have people who don't get into it like that. It's like, what do you hear? Because somebody who just listens to music and then somebody who creates music, you're gonna get two different responses. right? Maybe the person who just listens is just like, okay, all right, now I may have to turn my volume down a little bit, but it sounds good. I hear everything. And then they tell you that, right? And then you go send it to somebody else and they're like, hey, turn that trumpet down a little bit. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Let me go back and, so it's like that, but you can get some different perspectives and not just your own, because sometimes you get used to how things sound, right? Coming out of your own speakers, and you start to trust that that's it. Don't be it, right? But with as much time as I spent with this, check, try -12 for a starting point. Um, Kick, try -9, right? Um, and go from there. Everything else, mix it in, right? See how you feel. See how you feel about it, right? Um, just randomly, same techniques.
This is another Ron production.
I'm gonna turn this up a little bit.
Legion of Tunes.
So all we're trying to do is create balance. That's it. Create balance between everything so that as everything plays, it's about the same loudness. The piano sounds about as loud as the snare, which sounds about as loud as the kick, which sounds about as loud as the bass, which sounds about as loud as our hats playing, even though we dropped our hats down to -21, right? But do you hear the consistency in the volume, the perceived volume, not the meters, all right? Forget those meters. It's good, but at the end of the day, it's what you perceive, right? And then little by little, right? Because you start off and you go, okay, I did this to the kick, I did this to the snare, and you're already feeling defeated because it doesn't seem like it's just popping out at you. Well, you haven't gone through the rest of the sounds and done what you need to do, so you're not gonna get the wind, right? It's like, okay, we gotta go and skin the fish, right? We gotta clean it up and make it all, and then we gotta go and we gotta take the potatoes, we gotta peel, we gotta do this to make it what we want. Then we gotta go do this, right? Like the meal's not done, but you're kind of like prepping everything up, right? And then you gotta cook it. You gotta let it cook. Like you gotta trust the process, right? And then by the time you get to the end of doing everything that you're doing, I can hear everything clearly. Now let's blend. That's when you'll grab the faders and you'll start to move things until you get a nice blend. So right, so I think this is okay with everything else that's going on. But let's say it was up louder, okay? Then I would slowly start to move this. Move it a dB at a time. For every 1 dBu, the fader, it accounts for 3 decibels, 3 dB in perceived volume. So move it slowly until you feel like it kind of blends. And once it blends, leave it alone, right? Leave it alone. So say again, let's just listen. Okay, -2. We're done, right? Because as you do this slowly, you will start to hear the decrease in the volume at some point, and it will feel like it sits in. It just snaps in with the rest of everything, and that's it, right? And that's how you would do that. So again, the best way is before you start mixing, don't touch any of your faders. Okay, work with input gain only, right? That's the loudness of the signal coming into your mixer. It also controls the noise to signal ratio, right? In other words, picture you have an electric guitar, you have an amp, right? You have two important knobs on there. What is that? Your gain and your volume, right? The gain is the input, and the more I turn that up, the more it drives the signal. And as I drive that signal, what do I get? I get a distorted guitar sound, right? So the more I would drive the signal on this kick and it starts getting closer to 0, the more distorted this sound is gonna start becoming, right? The more distorted this sound is gonna start becoming. It's not the clean hitting kick anymore, right? With the thump, it's now a distorted hitting kick. You can hear that distortion. And then if I come here and say I want to turn this down, all I'm doing is quieting the distorted sound that I've created, because your fader controls the output volume. In other words, take the gain on the amp on the guitar, drive it, create an electric, a dirty sound from the electric guitar, and then use the volume to quiet that dirty sound, right? Maybe you're looking for that, right? Maybe you're not. So work with the input gain, get all your volume levels right. From there, start mixing. Then when you get done, faders, right? And then you can turn down certain things if you feel like it's too loud, okay? And blend everything in nicely. It'll translate. All right. I think I said enough. I'm sure you're over there like my brain, and I'm sorry, but really from what you're telling me, you're at least doing, right? You're at least doing the EQ and things like that. But like I said, I think it's probably a volume issue, and where you're trying to overcompensate, because in the headphones, sometimes in the monitors, we may feel like we don't hear it as well, and so it sounds like the kick is just kind of boom out there, the snare is boom out there, the hats are boom out there, and the bass, it just seems like I can kind of hear it, but let me turn it up more. It's perfect, because when you're dealing with those sub frequencies, you're not really hearing them like that. Our ears don't pick it up like that. But if you were to just take that sound by itself and turn the volume up, right, it's all over the place. So I don't know if I did the rumble correct, but that's what happens. That's what happens. And so you start to realize, like, you don't really have to go crazy with it to get what you're looking for out of it. So even some instrument, again, even the vocals right now sound on par with the bass. Like, you could test it against different things. But this is why I say too, after you make your decisions and you do all that, I always say, I'll give this another listen tomorrow, right? Because after about an hour, right, probably less if you're just, some of us like to work with the volume up really, really loud. That's okay. But understand it's a thing called ear fatigue, and it's very real. All right, where things will start kind of blending in together after a while, and suddenly what you thought was perfect ain't perfect, and so you go back and you start touching things. Mm-mm. First thing you should be telling yourself is it sounded good earlier, don't sound good now. Probably ear fatigue. I need to go take a break. I need to go take a break, especially right, someone who's kind of got starting points and things that they like to work at, and I've seen the results, right? I've heard the results. Like everything's blended. If I got my starting points together and I'm creating, and now I'm feeling like I can't really hear that hat anymore, I'm not gonna touch it. I just go, okay, I'm getting to that point. Like, let me just finish up what I'm doing at least, and then let me go, right? But the better you get at it, the faster you'll be able to move, and then um, the less that'll kind of happen to you, or at least get caught in it. At least if you're caught in it, you're probably like already at the end, and you're just like, okay, bam, my meter's hitting good here. This sounds good here. Kind of hear everything here. Bam, let me just stop. Let's come back a few hours later. Let me go do something, whatever, and then bam. So one of the biggest things: take care of your ears. Your ears are your money makers. All right. Um, and listening to other music is also key as well because you get to hear how that stuff sounds, right? If you go and you play a professional track, you're gonna notice that bass ain't just like it's not blaring either, right? Play that song and then play yours, right? And listen to how that sounds. Like you'll be surprised. You're like, okay, but that song hits hard in my car, but it don't sound like the bass is just out of there. But a lot of times what you're hearing this track may have width to it, so it may sound a bit more spread out, and that's okay, right? What you're listening for is the volume, right, of the sounds. And when you switch back between what you did and what's playing, right, you easily come to the conclusion that, hey, okay, I might be overdoing it, right?
Jones.
So this wouldn't be an exact match, but find a song that's within the genre that you're creating and just listen to how it sounds, right? And then I can come back. I can play them together. Right? And I can go, okay, this one's just a little bit louder. I can hear the melodies just a little bit louder than mine. Okay, I might need to go up a little bit, right? Maybe they're too low, even though it sounds really clean, right? Go back and kind of change that, right? But that's stuff that you can do. But also don't get too defeated because those songs have already been mastered. So they went through a different process after the mix process. So though you may have your limiter on and all that, and got it as loud as you can get it, just like in mastering, they're gonna make it as loud as you can get it. It might not sound as clean as it could sound, and that's because it didn't get mastered. But level wise, you can at least check that and say everything's about there, right? You can just you always go and just listen to that stuff. Listen to it in your headphones, listen to it in your speakers, right? Just have those moments where you're not doing anything like creating. Just listen to music. Listen to how these songs you already know have like good bass or good sounding pianos or whatever it is. Listen to how loud that sounds because in your studio monitors, in your studio monitor headphones, everything is supposed to be more accurate than the speakers that the average consumer buys. So the way you hear things are going to be a little different, especially if you got Bear Dynamics. I just like to welcome you to the elite club. I know what's the company, VSX, came and kind of looks like it's about to knock Bear Dynamics out the box. But uh, what I like about this is the separation in the sounds. It's like it's like really, I don't know how to explain it, especially when I'm gaming. Yes, I game with my studio monitor headphones, so don't start saying I'm a cheater because I heard something half a mile away. It's the headphones. All right. I was playing Valorant. What was it, last year or something? Sometime last year, and I had died, and I'm watching one of my teammates, and I hear like footsteps. It's quiet, but I hear the footsteps, and I'm like, he's to your right, and this guy is like so confused. He's like, what? I'm like, he's to your right. Next thing you know, because the footsteps start getting louder, he's like, oh, I hear him, I hear him, I hear him, and then he got the kill, and he was like, how did you hear that? I said, see studio monitor headphones. He was like, what kind are they? And I told him, he was like, nice. Someone was like, I heard of those. And I was like, man, this is nuts. Like, nobody heard that but me. That is crazy. So, yeah, you just, I like them. And I've had other types of headphones. I've had stuff from like Sony. Um, But what I do like about these is the separation. Like even when I'm hearing like a mixed track, like the pen, like every single thing, I can hear it like in its own little space. It's the one thing that kind of had me sold when I was listening to like reviews on it. Not only for the cushions, because these are nice. They're really nice. They're comfortable. I could wear these for like 8 hours before my head, before I feel like I'm getting a headache. All right, y'all see me on these streams all the time. These are what I'm wearing, right? Even when I'm gaming. So, um, yeah, I do like them. They do kind of give a little bit more like separation, and it was something I had to adjust to when I got these. So, um, but I love them. I love them. It's crazy, like the stuff that I could like pinpoint, that I could pinpoint, that other people are probably still looking at me crazy for. Okay. And the reason why I say VSX might have Bear Dynamics, against the ropes is because they have a software that will actually simulate different environments, right? So this is specifically built for like the producers. So you can sit there with the headphones on and say you want to hear it in a club setting, right? And it'll give you a picture in the software of like a club and all that, and it has like the placement and all of that is crazy, and it will generate what that would sound like if you were in a club listening to that song. And you can say, what does it sound like in the car? And it will like actually generate what that's gonna sound like in your car without you having to go to your car, right? So those are crazy. I'm pretty sure, you might have to sell a solar to get you one, but but from what I'm hearing, it's a major thing. So I would say quality wise, it's probably on par. It's just that software, right? That's gonna give you these different environments before you even bounce it out and call it done. Be able to hear what it sounds like in those different environments. Because, like I said, through your studio monitors in your room, it may sound good. Then you get in your car and something may not sound right. You may play it in a club, it may not sound right. It gets to somebody's home entertainment system, it may sound good, right? Like it just depends. Be able to simulate what all these environments sound like, and then be able to bring your music through it so that you get an accurate, or I would say as close to accurate as you're going to get for those types of environments. That is nuts, and not have to literally go. Whoop, let me make an MP3. Let me go walking here. Let me go walk in the car and take a drive real quick. Let me go, and do all of that. You could literally just at your desk and simulate this as needed, and then bounce it. So hopefully, hopefully that helped. And like I said, I think I think more or less for you it's probably just an issue of volume, and you can't. It takes some time, but once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Once you go, okay, once it does this, that's it, right? Because you gotten to hear it, you gotten to hear what it sounds like, and so now, if you go above that or it's below that, you're going to be in trouble. And I'm telling you, minus 12. And I'm playing my stuff against other stuff so you can hear it. But you base it about minus 12. Start working from there, right? Your kick, your bass should sound really good. And even, what could I do? It doesn't matter how many of these I pull up. You're gonna see these like starting points, and then you'll see my end points. But I usually, right, I'll start at minus 12, and if needed, I'll probably drop it to about minus 15 once I start moving the faders, if it feels like it's a little too strong. Um, Again, just to create that balance. We're not trying to look to create anything like bass heavy or anything like that. Just create the balance of it. Then when it gets into mastering, if you want a bass heavy track or whatever, like once you got the whole of the beat done, then you want to come over here and you want to make it low, then go for it, right? Because as you start to boost the whole track in the bass area, right, as everything starts getting boosted, it'll sound nice because you're just turning up frequencies, right? So if in the bass area, right, in my mix, if I got the bass right, then all that means is when I go to the whole of the track to turn it up, it's gonna turn all of those frequencies up, right? And so whatever little ratio or whatever I had, they're all getting turned up the same, right? So all it does is result in a cleaner, bass heavy track. But if I don't do that and I try and make it bass heavy in the mix, then by the time I get to the master and try and do this, now I'm just making a bass heavy. I said it twice. I like my bass heavy. Mix the track bass heavy. Master with the bass heavy. I don't know, just. Oh man, this hadn't even been mixed. Okay, it looks like I started, but nothing else has been done. But it's just the drums, right? So same thing. It's over here, that's why. Okay, the whole thing has been mixed. So let's take a look. Kinda low there, right? We could try and maybe turn it up a little bit, but as you can see, close to minus 15, right? Oh, sorry, let's bring this up to about here. Okay. But if I go back to 0, we're at minus 12, right? So again, everything, boom, 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 boom. Everything gets mixed down, right? Let's say we're at the end here. We got everything mixed down.
This is another production.
All right, we got everything together. It sounds really clean. I can kind of hear everything still, whatever, right? Now I can come here and I can start trying to blend things, right? So you may want to start with like drums and bass, right? So again, I'm trying to blend everything. I want everything to blend together. Well, look what I did. That's all I have, at least. Nah, if I have this. Let's maybe drop this about the same. I pretty much treat all my hats the same, so if I'm gonna drop this down by 3, let's start. Now this, maybe you want to do 2 instead of 3 and have it be a little bit louder. That's fine, right? But as long as we're creating a blend in our stuff. All we're looking for is for that to be blended. Okay, as soon as that comes in, way too loud against the kick, right? Okay, does it sound like it's playing with the kick? Bam, done. Alright, and you can start blending some of this other stuff in. Five.
This is another hit Ron production.
Right? It's basically all you're doing. And your ears just have to be able to hear it. Right? And you'll know where you are, and then that's where you set it. And the more you start doing it, some things will pop out, right? Things you use a lot. So like bass, you kind of know where to start and where you're probably going to end up at the end of it. But hey, maybe with it not being as mixed or anything like that, -12 gives it a little bit more, presence. But once you get done, -12 might be a bit too loud, right? Might be a bit too strong, right? Let's turn that down till we're back to what we had it in the remix, where we actually had the kick and the bass playing well together, right? We got to simulate that again. So we may need to drop it in order to get that, right? But notice, once we do that, we're going to get the same sound, right? We're going to get the same result, right? So and again, that's a volume type of thing, and that's something that over time the ears will kind of like pick up, right? Sometimes you might even have to go into like a borderline like meditative state just to be able for it to like snap. You said $200 to $500 headphones. What were we talking about? The VSX, or are you talking about these? Because these I want to say were probably a little more, but no, not like more than 500. But yeah, they're expensive. It definitely are, but I got these. I don't know if they got a newer model out, but at the time these came out, I think these are the 990s. I went and got these, or these are 7. What is it? I keep forgetting the numbers. I think they changed. I think they went to like the 700s for the next model, because I had the 770s. I had like the limited edition ones, and then after that, I think they went down to like 700, 900, something like that. So anyway, I ended up getting those, and what I like about this is steel, right? This is kind of plastic, but it was pretty sturdy. Um, this is a bit plastic, the cushions, whatever. But with these, right? I like this because all of this is steel. So it comes down. That whole thing is steel, right? So it ensures that as you're wearing them, especially me, I have a big head, all right, and trying to open and all that. Since this whole thing is metal, you don't have to worry about, oh, there's just metal right here, and then this broke off, right? Because that's what happened to my last the other pair I had, right? The limited edition ones. Yeah, the this was steel, but right when it got here, it had plastic around it with screws, and then at some point, just wear and tear. I had them like what 2 years or something. They started to break off, and once it broke off, that was it, right? So now it's just a whole steel section here. So ain't no chance of that. But let's say this breaks, or let's say this casing right here breaks. I could actually go and buy the part from their website. They're replaceable, and I can go and just fix the part that breaks. And that's what made me just go and shell out the money. Cause hey, me having headphones break and having to go buy headphones or tape it up till it basically breaks again. No, no. If it breaks, hey, if I had these for 3 years and starts to the cushion just ain't cushioning no more, you just go buy new cups, right? And you replace it, right? Good as new again. So I like that. You catch, right? Come on, run it. There we go. Right. So the cable gets bad, you keep yanking it or whatever, and the cable's no good. You just buy a new cable. Right? It snaps in there. It's got a little button you can release it. So that's why I got it because everything's replaceable. And if you don't like this type of cable and you want like a flat cable, you could buy that as well, right? Camera's all gray. Let me guess. It's been gray this whole time, huh? Don't don't talk to me. Don't say anything. All right. Because I'm looking up at my camera and I'm like, my camera's not even on, so of course it's gray. So I don't know. I just got here. My camera's off. So I have a Panasonic Lumix G7. So while everybody was out buying the Sony A100s, which they don't produce anymore, um, I was looking for a camera that not only I could use for a stream camera, but that I can use outside of stream, right? And well, 1080p is cool. I've been always looking for the future, right? Which is 4K. So the Panasonic Lumix G7 records in 4K, but it only goes to 30 frames. But when you're talking about movies and cinematics and whatever, it's 24. So why do you need 60? Well, if you want to do slow mo, I guess 60 will work, right? But yeah, so found it on eBay. It is mirrorless, so lenses, the lens, man. For a really good lens, it's about twice as much as I spent for the camera. It's like $600, man. I'm like, what? But eventually, I want to be able to do stuff with it. So I've been learning like the ISO and all that stuff and how to set it. And I got all the little dings and whistles in the back when I'm like, going to take pictures and learning what they do and when you got the lighting just right and all that stuff. So it's been fun. But I've been using the kit lens, the stock lens. Um, but eventually I'll get a much better lens. So I just wanted to say hi before I go to bed. Have a good stream. Yeah, appreciate you stopping by. Hold on. Give you a shout. Thank you for stopping by, and hope you have a good night. But yeah, it's pretty much it, right? So you just want to make sure that you're able to hear everything in a balanced manner, and then you'll notice everything it's just dope. It's just dope. It'll all sit there. Same thing. Again, don't hesitate. Pull up 2 EQs. Let's see what you got going on here. Now here, right? I kind of went into this area. All right, but having to be very, very careful about what I'm doing there. But I use a lot of lower notes, right? So to get that to kind of translate, but we skipped over that 200 area, right? We created a slight dip here where our kick is, right? We rolled off. You see all that? Okay, that's getting rolled off. That's intense. A lot of rumble, all right? So taming that, especially when you have those bass notes or the bass sound you chose as a long tail, okay? You don't, again, that's gonna create this uncontrollable rumble at some point. So you have to roll that off, and all it's gonna do is tighten it up. So you don't have to necessarily worry, right, that because it sounds quieter that it's not actually going to do its job. Just that's what it's gonna sound like. All right. Again, depending on the bass, maybe it's a guitar or something. Then I don't know. Maybe you wanna boost over here a little bit, but that plays a little different from a synth bass, right? With synth basses, it just gets trying to do something like this is crazy. Even my ears are starting to rumble in my headphones, right? A little, but I can feel like the insides of my ears are actually starting to. That's letting you know that's crazy. Like in your headphones, you should not be hearing these sub frequencies like that to the point where it's causing a rumbling in your ears. All right. Now, yes, we want to hear the bass, and you can probably get a visual of okay, boom, that's hitting. But you should not. Your ears should not be going like shaking on the inside. That is crazy. Right? I can tell you right now, this is crazy. I don't even have my speakers up, and I can tell you this is gonna sound crazy. This is gonna sound ridiculous. All right. So this right? Okay. Maybe if there's not a lot of energy, but you can see that's a lot of energy. You don't need to give it more. Right? If this is the 0 point, okay, it's already up like 2 or 3. It's already up 3 dB, 4 dB. Why would I go and boost that anymore? Don't need it, right? It just doesn't need it. So I would rather from this point forward it goes down. Like I said, after 40, 50 hertz, your shelf speakers don't pick up that stuff anymore, right? That's the job of the sub, right? You got volume knobs on your sub and all that. You don't need give it that much for the sub to do anything, right? You just need a little bit. you roll it off, right? And as you're starting to get down here, no one's gonna care, right? No one's care. So, bam, you want a tighter base. This is what you got to do, right? Um, now, back when, or if you're using um, the plugins modeled after analog gear, right? Or you have the hardware, right? Then no, go to this after, so you're not gonna see it. So let's see. Okay, so now you can start seeing it move, right? And it's dragging all of this because we're at 100 hertz. It's dragging all of this down. The way in which it's dragging it, okay, is more like this. It's in a shelf, which is why as I started to hertz, started to bring it down, you saw all of this push down, right? So, and they couldn't really necessarily roll off unless, and I don't know what this curve looks like, you're willing to chop it off here at 50. I like doing my roll offs at like 40, 32, 50, and especially whatever slope this might be using. I don't know, it might be cutting into something I want, right? So a lot of them, when it came to their bass, if they had to turn it down, it was this. Right? It wasn't rolling this off to tighten it up, right? Especially on bass guitars, because kind of starts in that 80 hertz range and goes up. You can get some low end out of it, but it's usually not a lot there unless you're going to be playing those lower bass notes. You might be able to get away with it. A lot of times it's cut around 80, right? They that on the bass. So at 80, they'll start taking this and start rolling that off, right? Which is why it sounds like that. Now from here, from 50, I don't know what that curve looks like. However, I want to do a default here. High pass, let's take it over to 50. If the slope is anything like this, okay, then right not too far off of 20 hertz. Let's say it made it down to like 23, 25. Okay, if it's anything like this would probably, I would be okay. I don't know. And for all I know, it could just be a hard, like that curve could be a lot more aggressive, right? I don't know. But what I hear, it don't sound like this. So a lot of times I'm like, when I use it, I would rather take this, go to 60, knowing that this is using a shelf, and then I would rather just turn it down, you know, feel like bam, the kick is now over, right? That's the dip that I'm creating, and then the board, whatever, it's doing its thing. I would rather use this on the bass and do the shelf than come in here and do this because there's no way for me to actually visualize this slope. Now, do have I don't know if it would show though. I'd have to see. Maybe that's why they don't do it. But they do have analyzers, right? Where you can like use these EQs and stuff like that and it will show you the curves of them, which is how I found out how this thing kind of works and shapes things. So this is using a low shelf and then over here is using a high shelf here. And here is using a bell curve. So basically, you have a three band EQ, right? So this all works together, right? This has no effect on this. That is here, right? For 20 hertz, 10K hertz, and 5K hertz, right? Those are your only options, right? And then these two works, right? So coming here and doing this and then moving this does absolutely nothing because this is a shelf, and however it's set is however it's set, right? Same thing here. However it sets, however it's set. The only time you get to control this bandwidth of this curve is for this, right? And that's actually for boosting. That has nothing to do with cutting with the highs, right? These things are awkward, aren't they? But worked, right? So yeah, that's it. That's it, man. Um yeah, just get used to hearing it, even if you just have to like play it by itself. And just listen to it. Like after a break, come back to it. Just mute everything except for like the kick and the bass. And just let it play. And be like, when it plays, does that sound blended? Okay, let me change it up a little bit. Then bring everything back in. You'll probably be surprised at how well it's still you can still hear it, or feel it, right? In relation to everything else, right? It's and again in your headphones, this is not going to be heard at a loud volume, but as soon as you put it in front of some speakers that do have volume, you'll catch it. You know what? Was that I think I seen that name earlier. I think I ignored it because it was a bot. I could be wrong. Yep, it was a bot. All right. Oh crap. Not what I meant to do. Wait, where's the? Here we go. All right, let's ban them and delete. I was about to say thank you for the follow, and then I was like, wait a minute. So there we go. Bye. Yeah, man. Hopefully that helped. Can't lie, this went on for longer than I thought. We've been talking about bass for way too long, but do have some different things that you could do there. Um, you have also compression, saturation, and um, limiters as well. So first, listen to your bass. Watch the volume meter. See if there's anything spiking or anything like that. If so, contain it. If not, you're good to go. If you want a little more energy out of it, saturation would be the pick right there. Put that on first. Get it triggered. Then go do your EQ. EQ. Take a look at your kick and your bass. Put them side by side. 9 times out of 10, I am going to suggest that you roll off your bass more around that 32, 40 hertz area. All right. And that's going to tighten or tame the low end, right? Especially if you're wanting this thing to be kind of loud, right? Once you get the dips in where your kick should be, seems like it's a little muddy when everything is playing, and it doesn't sound like it seems like it's too tight, or tight enough where it sits like behind the beat, but it still has its power. then that 200 to 300 frequency range is going to be where you're going to want to create a dip, right? And you can hear it. It's just a kind of hollow, muddy area, right? And all it can do is tighten up your bass, right? Time you find that pocket, kick, snare, doesn't matter. Cutting it is only going to make that sound tighter, okay? If you ever lose volume, put it back, right? Don't go, oh, I cut here and the volume went down, so I'm stuck. Come in here, return that volume back, right? And now you have this tighter bass sound, right? Right? And by cutting into here, as opposed to this, right? Stops it from, it kind of just, it doesn't sound like it's playing behind, right? It's just kind of out in the front. It's like, here, I'm here. And you're like, in the back. So by taking this problematic area and cutting into it, you can actually really give that illusion that the bass is playing behind your drum, behind your kick, behind your, right? By doing that. And now it sounds tight, right? And again, if you lost some volume, then you return that volume, and now you have this much tighter sound. Difference? Right? There's a difference there. And again, biggest things, everything that sounds good in solo ain't always good. So always make your changes and then bring everything back in and listen to it. Bypass it if you need to. Right? Do you miss anything? Is anything getting lost? Is something causing conflict with something? Those decisions and be like, okay, I boosted it because it sounds good, but now I can't hear the piano. The piano is the thing I want to stick out. Well, then don't boost the sound. You need to cut the sound, right? Turning down the frequency of those volumes, you create the illusion that the sound is being in the background, right? And so it doesn't take you to drop it 6 dB to actually get that to happen. Take it down 2 dB or something, because you probably already boosted something else like 3, right? So we're in the difference between where that started when you went to go and cut it. It don't take much before that thing is now sitting under and this one's sitting on top. Like, these are the things that run through our heads when we're doing things, right? Understand it in a more simple form, right? Instead of like trying to bring all the formulas and, all of that, instead of getting all technical with it, just understand some things simply. Foreground and background. Melody, no. Background, right? Cut. All right, found a fundamental cut, right? Because this is a background sound. We needed to play in the back. We need to give that illusion. So the sweet spots that I found need to come down, not up, right? All of that kind of stuff, right? Make little mental images or whatever. It's kind of like when I was growing up, I was in like math class and we would get these problems and stuff like that. And they were, eventually the teacher would be like, let me show you how to do something real quickly, right? This is how you can do this in your head. If you ever get a number that ends with a 0, right? Let's say it's 50, right? You can shift this number over because 0 times anything is 0, right? And you're going, well, so now you really got to worry about is multiplying 5 by whatever the number is, because you already know 0 is going to be your first number, no matter what, right? So it's kind of like those things. This cuts out a lot of the work, cuts out some steps, and gets right to the problem, right? So, same thing. If you can ask yourself that question, this is your probably not gonna be a good thing for the kid, but okay. So this is your stage, okay? Top down. Anything that we boost, we push to the front of the stage, it's going to appear louder to the listener or to the audience because it's closer to them, okay? Whereas when we go to cut, we push things to the back of the stage, it's going to sound quieter to the listener, right? Or the audience, right? Because it's further away from them now. And that's what we're doing. We're just controlling the volume, but by a frequency range, basis, right? It's not like, oh, I'm turning the volume down, everything gets turned down, right? I'm turning the volume up, everything gets turned up. No, you come in here and select. So you can come here and find, okay, there's some clarity there. Bam, right? Okay, I can hear like the bass, the warmth in here, right? Okay, so I found these. Here's that hollow area we talked about, right? Okay, so I found these three. Now, what do I want to do, right? What instrument is this? What does this usually sound like when it plays, right? Where might this be positioned on a stage, right? And why might that be? Right? Because energy runs from your left to your right. All right. So little panning lesson for you. So lower frequency sounds, right, are more pronounced in your left ear than in your right ear, right? And likewise, the higher frequency sounds are more present in your right ear than your left ear, right? So sometimes the way things are arranged, if you think about a drum set, right, you might pan your hats to the right because it sits to the left of the drummer, but it's to the right of the audience. And why do you think that is, right? Bam. All right. So some things just make sense, right? It makes sense to think about all these things and positioning and where things go because of how that's going to um, affect the listener or the audience and what kind of experiences it's going to give them. Sometimes you just can't help it, right? This might be a high pitched sound and this might be a high pitched sound, but they can't both play on the same side. That might cause conflict. So something's got to go on this other side, right? In that case, you pick which one you want to be heard most, right? And then the other one goes on the other side. It doesn't mean that you're not going to hear it. It's just it's not as pronounced. Your ears don't make it out as clearly, right? As it would. So sometimes you run into issues like that. But listening to this, right? One, you have to do way too much to hear anything coming out of this, right? Two, I like this piano, but that sounds a little too bassy, doesn't it? So, what are we gonna do? Let's drop that, okay? You have this hollow area here, okay? All this letting you know is right across the spectrum. You have low end, you have high end information, and all this letting you know is it's not it's not as there's not as much information in this area, right? Which is why it sounds like that. Which is why it sounds empty, right? Kind of like dead. It's just that hollow box sound. Like there's something here, but it's not a lot, right? So we could also turn this down because when we find that area, it always tightens up the sound, right? Too low. And then we have this, and we know this is where we found our clarity, right? which sounds really good, and it balances this piano out from the low notes we're hearing and from the higher notes that we're hearing, right? So, all in all, what you just did was you balanced out the sound of this piano, which goes back to mixing. We're creating balanced tracks. So, we balanced out this piano sound, right? Using frequency. And so now when you play, you have a more consistent sound with that. Okay. Likewise, usually when there's a piano on stage, it's usually turned to a side, right? And it's usually turned to where the higher octaves, right? Those higher notes are facing toward the audience anyway, right? Because of this problem, right? Because of those low frequency waves, right? They can shoot far more distance, greater distance than the higher frequencies, which are short, right? So by turning that piano, right, even if those frequencies, the bass frequencies bounced off the back of the stage and then came back, right? Even if that was the case, right, because it travels further, you're still going to hear it. It's just not going to be as prominent, right? Some things just click, 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 click. So you could picture a stage and be like, okay, I got this piano. Which way is the piano go? Boom. Okay. The higher frequencies closer to the listener, and the lower octaves, right? Those lower frequencies are towards the back of the stage, and like immediately you'll go and you'll find the bass, and you'll be like, okay, we're gonna bring that down, and then we're gonna go and find the the highs here, and we're gonna turn that up, right? Bam, you're done. You get to brass. Brass is back of the stage, right? So would find wherever those sweet spots are for the brass, and then you're going brass in the back of the stage. It doesn't matter what, right? The whole section's in the back of the stage, okay? So then you drop, and you would drop, right? And then you would get something where it's like the brass is playing behind. In this case, it's your piano. So now it sounds like your piano is playing behind the synth sound right here, right?
This is another hit run production.
Just it's little things like that. So if you can understand it enough, hang around me enough, you'll definitely understand. You can ask addicts down here, all right? You'll definitely hear me say some stuff and you're like, bruh, my forehead right now. I need to go lay down real quick. All right, so that's it. Once you can see it, once you can hear it, you can't see it, you can't unhear it. It's there is a lot of technical info because you need to learn what your EQ is. What is this? What is this? What is this? What kind of bands you have and why you might want to use those bands. Technical. But when you get into actually starting to manipulate the frequencies, easy. And then the technical stuff just kind of, comes into play so that you know what you're doing. If you're saying, oh, I want this to do blah, you have the technical know how to know what band gives what shape so you can target what, right? At the end of the day, the EQ aspect of it, if you want to know that, like as far as like placement, positioning, that kind of thing, if you want to get into a more philosophical, I'll say, philosophical way of looking at a perspective, just look at bands on stage, look at orchestras on stage, just look at the way things are positioned, and you're going to hear it as well according to its position, and then it shows you, okay, that's why that sounds good. So hey, I might go and get my brass or whatever, but my brass section is flesh, kind of scattered between the back end on the left and the right side. So then, which way do I pan it? We're not gonna pan it. We're gonna widen it, right? So we can give that perception of the brass is scattered behind the background, right? I wouldn't go and just say I'm just gonna pan this to the right. Now, if I had like maybe one or two, three brass players, yeah, you can pull that off, right? When you have a whole section of brass and you're just like, everybody cram over here to the right, it sounds kind of funny, right? Even in your own headphones, right? It just sounds funny. The strings, you're just like everybody over to the left, and you're just like it just doesn't work. So you might have your brass section like this, and they're spread, and then you might have your string section here, but they're spread, and then you have like some other things going. Like just look at an orchestra, just watch videos, just watch it. Look at where everybody's sitting, right? Oh, here they come with the wind chimes and xylophones. Just look at where they're positioned, and you could always go, that man knows what he's talking about. It's just little things you make note of, and it really goes a long way in helping you to kind of move things along. But that's panning. But but it goes hand in hand. Um, that's it. You got EQ, you got panning. We talked a little bit about compression earlier in like saturation, but I didn't go like too into it. But at least on your bass, you'll know how that works. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that we spent 2 hours. But I had fun, alright? It's one of my fun moments. But I have fun explaining this stuff. And hopefully, if anybody sits through this 2 hour bass lecture here that was kind of scattered, you'll get it. I did say quite a few things. That's why I don't make videos either. I'm just all over the place, right? But hey, look, when I'm on, pull up. All right. I do walkthroughs when I do this stuff, so it'll definitely, we'll go in order from sound by sound, whatever. But I like this stuff. This is what I do, so I'm passionate about it. All right, and so as an audio engineer and the way sounds work and things of that nature, like I could go on. As you can see, I could go on, right? But I like this stuff, and hopefully that'll help. Hopefully that'll help. So bass, and we're talking hip hop here because depending on genres, right, it may not be the same. It may change. Things that you may do, right, effects you may add may change. But here, hip hop, starting minus 12 dB, minus 12 kick. All right, they say between -6, -9. I start with -9. All right, I haven't missed yet. -9, bass -12, snare -12. My hats are -21. I'm literally giving y'all starting points. All right, so it doesn't matter closed hat, open hat, crash hat, right? The only one that might change will be like your ride cymbal. You can maybe start -18, maybe -15 if you can't really hear it. But once you get everything mixed in, you're probably gonna bring that down more so it's closer to everything else, right? But in the beginning, because it's not like that like high frequency, it's not like a ton of energy kind of driving it. So you may feel like you need to turn that up, but as you start to kind of get everything cleaned up and mixed down and all that, then it sounds like it's too loud and you're gonna want to bring it down, right? Melodies, usually I like starting at about -18. So whatever the main melody is, of course, that's gonna be the loudest thing. If I'm layering on top of that main sound, that sound may be -18 for a starting point as well, but usually I'll try and take it to like -21. Any background sounds are usually going to be lower in volume, and then from there, any sounds that may be competing, like maybe I got two high frequency sounds or something like that, then we'll start determining panning, right? We'll start looking into panning on where to kind of shift this and shift that, so that they're not fighting for space on the same side of the speaker. Do that, move them. Now, if they're layered together, sometimes you have strings, right? And maybe you have like high frequency, but you got something that's a little higher that's above it playing, right? Maybe you're doing some kind of call and answer response or whatever. You could blend those, most definitely. Just make sure that, again, on the frequencies, one, you may boost because you want that to be heard a little better, a little louder, and then the other, you're gonna cut, right, same area, because you want that to play in the background. So usually what I'll do is the strings that are playing the lower octaves, that will be the one I kind of have play in the back. But depending on what you're looking for, you may want that more present, and then you may want the strings that are the higher of the two, right, to play in the front. But I found actually turning those down works wonders, right, when you're dealing with high frequencies, very high frequencies at that. So I'll usually do that, and then the others I will let kind of peek out. So yeah, that's it. This one I definitely want to redo.
This is another hit run
But use our new tools on it and see what we get. Cause I've been getting some really interesting feedback when I use that, right? And like I said, now I kind of know why. Kind of what's happening on the back end a little bit. So yeah, it makes me confident. Even if I didn't have those, we'd still be able to like get pretty close. All right. So with these, you don't have too much freedom, right? And I feel like it's kind of one of the main problems that we have now. Is just too much freedom, right? This on like 34, I could put it on 34 to like cut it off, but you don't get that here. Like you're gonna take 20, 30, 60, or 100. Like choose the best spot and work from there, right? And so by limiting the options that you have, this kind of actually helps you to work faster, because you start knowing like, in this range, this is about as far as I can get without messing up this sound or this type of sound. So whenever you're dealing with them, it's just like click, 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 and next thing you know, you're done, right? Whereas this, we're too busy, trying to like, how far can we, and you're just going up and up and up, or it's wild, right? Any of these bands, can be anything. So we want, this type of shape, or we want, this type of shape, or like, it's just, while we have it and it's very useful, right? Because we can emulate these different analog EQs as well and their curves. It could be overwhelming if you don't know what you're doing with them, or like why you would want to use that type of and right, and then your cue, right? So making things either, you know narrow or more broad or whatever, and seeing how that stuff works. Again, here you're kind of stuck with whatever they built it for, however they needed it. And if that's still being used to this day and you can get a high quality track from it, why not? Your options are limited, yes, but I've been making it work. I spent like a few days messing with it. And after that, I'm like, oh, we got the sauce. It's on now, right? No problem. But let me get out of here. It's already 10. This is usually not a scheduled day, but and yesterday, man, the AC broke. So yeah, or what was it? not yesterday, day before. So that was my one of my scheduled days, but mm-mm. Texas, no AC. It was death. It was death. There was no way. There was no way I was gonna do that. There was no way. Um, I've been kind of still playing with that R&B progression, right? So so it's going from that one, and then we're going to our seven, right? So it's 1, 7, then we go 3, 2, 5, 1, right? So, but when you get over here to your seven, right? This is what that sounds like, right? Um, so, right, because these are all the notes in the scale, right? But what we do is we take our seven and we create a dominant. Okay, so if you look, here's our diminished chord, and all we're taking is our third and our fifth, and we're moving it up a half step. But anytime you find that diminished chord, if you want to create a dominant out of it, half step, right? This is how it works. If you want to go into, say you're in E major, okay, same thing. So you're gonna come over here. Okay, so you have this diminished thing going on. All you're gonna do is take your 3, your 5, and then go a half step. Okay, it doesn't fail. Doesn't fail. Okay, doesn't matter what key you're in. Find that even if you're in a minor key, you can still. Okay, you can still create it. Anytime you get around that diminished chord and you half step it, you're going to get something that sounds really, really nice. Okay. Right. But also, what you're gonna notice is we create that dominant, but as we're creating that dominant, what do we expect? That tension from the dominant, we wanted to take us home, right? So we have that G7, right? Dominant. It's home. Like that, okay? Right? So when we're doing that, all right, so here's our B dominant 7, right? Go. Well, when you go back, right? This is our 5th. So 5, 4, 3, using this 2, 1, right? Because you can't use 2 F's in the same scale. So what does that look like? It's E minor, right? So now you see why we went from here to E minor, which is also in our C major scale, right? So it works. Then we do our 2-5-1 back there. But what I also found out is while I was playing it, because some songs sound familiar, and just messing with like inversions and stuff. Um, Not too much different, but if I do this, I do this. Right? You ever heard a song kind of start like that? So it's almost right. Instead of coming here doing that, all I did was two notes. Right, which sounds pretty dope. And then from there, take this up, take this one, move it down, move it over. Or excuse me, hold on. Take both of these. I'm gonna move them down one. You can just shift it. So this will go a half step, this will go a half step, and then this goes a whole step, right? And so what you end up with is a B minor 7. But I wanted to play the E because we're supposed to move to the 3, right? Yeah. So you get this interesting sound right here, right? Right, and then you could right, but I'm still playing with this because I want to try and see like what I could actually do with that. I don't know. That doesn't seem like the move, but I am still playing with it to see what I can get. So maybe I could like. Right, and maybe that second time around I can jump in with that to make it a little different. Or I can start off with that first, or separate thing, right? Oops. Right, so darn it. Butchered that, didn't we? Because it's supposed to go like this. So yeah, I'm still experimenting with it, but as soon as I hit that sound, I was like, ooh, okay, that sounds really familiar right there. I've definitely heard that before. Um, Again, it's just a different way of kind of playing it. So again, it's not that much different from doing that. Just a right. And then when you get here is where it might get a little different because you're playing E in the bass, but there's no E that you're starting here or in this at all. But it still works, right? Like, alright. So, if you wanted to look at this, I guess. You look at that as like the 11th, right? Because as you 7, this would be your 9, that will be your 11th, which is that E, right? Playing that in the bass over your B minor 7, right? Instead of playing that all the way up there, it just sounds really cool like that, right? So or sorry, wrong note. Guess you could still but here, let's see. If we do something like that and then back. I don't know, just so that it's like that there's something different in the way that you play it the second time. So it's still not that. Try to make more R&B stuff. Like I said, I would definitely recommend you going the way of jazz and learning what you can about that, because a lot of that stuff is pretty much borrowed from it. You do have a lot borrowed from gospel as well, and I would easily tell you gospel came first before the jazz. All right, um, but kind of depends. Do you practice learning music hymns, or you know, and that's no shot there. It's just that's the route you're gonna take if you're gonna learn to play gospel, to hear all the stuff. Then you're gonna be going through gospel music. Hey, maybe that's not a problem for you. And I didn't think that was necessarily a problem, but all the like videos or tutorials I was trying to watch just to get a grasp for just like the basics, they were doing way too much. I'm like, man, just can we just start with the basics? It was too much, and so I was like, okay, that might be it. And there was a lot of stuff in jazz that is used in R&B. That's one of those things, right? Able to do the 2-5-1s and then another 2-5-1, another 2-5-1, right? I'm sorry. Another 2-5-1. Right, another 2-5-1. Another 2-5-1. Right, and you can keep this going, and then you have another section, 2-5-1s that you start from, right? And take this through all 12 keys. It's a warm up, right? So once you kind of have those, right? Notice I never go to the 1, right? But we're just 2, 5, change the key, 2, 5, right? So you can kind of get a little fancy with it, right? By swapping keys and borrowing the 2-5s. That's just I'll say simple, right? Where you can and you can come up with melodies or chord progressions that way. Um, Again, learning those to make those swings, those movements, right? Now you know where that comes from, right? But wait, there's more. Okay. Right? It's just there's so much you can do when you get the 2-5. Right? F major 7. That's the F major scale, right? 2, 5, 2 5 1. Right? It's just once you unlock that, you just kind of feel like Superman, even though you're not really doing anything, right? It's not too fancy, but it's fancy enough, right? It's fancy enough just to, for a quick second, and once you learn 2 5 1 just sounds like, and it doesn't matter where you go. 2 5 1, kind of like a major or minor scale. It just has till 2 5 1, and a lot of R&B does that, or our secondary dominance, right? So the right. So say we're playing from 1 to 2 to 1. So we play that, right? And before we get to the 2, we're gonna make a secondary dominant. Well, you know this is a D minor 7. So then what scale is it? It's in the name, minor. So E minor scale. And then what's its dominant? 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth is used the dominant, right? So by taking that, right, we could, if we do this, it becomes it's there, but it's not as much tension as doing major, right? Kind of what you learn with harmonic minor, right? So by incorporating this, you go from having minor 5 to having this major 5, right? So by taking this and then playing that, oops, sorry, then we can come here. Before we go to, right? And then in C major, we know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? We know our 5 is, right? So a lot of times you'll hear secondary dominance used in R&B, and if you can understand these things, they might be used or good times to use them. I mean, if you wanted to, you can put a secondary dominant after every chord. It sounds crazy, but you could do it. You put 2 5 1s after every chord, right? It'll sound crazy, but you could do it. But kind of better to get that blend and just it's kind of like when to drop it, right? So again, coming in with that secondary dominant, right? Which takes us to our E minor, right? Right? That would be the B minor 7, and again, instead of playing this note, we play this note. That's the harmonic minor, right? Which is where we even got to. That's part of, right? So that was the secondary dominant because we're in C major. So this dominant don't belong to C major. It belongs to E minor, right? Here's our C major dominant. It takes us back to home, right? So again, the best combinations are gonna be, and kind of put these in like kind of mix them instead of after every note that you're playing, you're like trying to do a 2-5-1 or whatever. Now, to be fancy or maybe you got a solo or something, I don't know. Maybe you just that's fine. But and I'm not saying there may not be examples out there either, but to do it after every chord, I'm sorry, it just doesn't sound as musical anymore, right? So doing it, when it suits. Oh, wrong one. So I don't know, just and don't forget you can always do passing chords, right? We're going to our B. Sound good right there, but we can still but that's what the practice is for, right? And so you take something, play it over again till you got it in me, and then too far. Right? So just play with different stuff and see what kind of I don't know. So how it is separated. There's a D minor 9. And I believe that is a G13, okay? Just a note. Just play with it. Still a 2, 5, to a 4. Right? So you can keep it like that. All it is, getting C major 9. We're just not playing the C up here. We're just keeping it in the bass. And there's that. Right? But here, right? Flat. Okay? Anytime you want to create that, right? From a minor chord perspective, just take your 5 and flatten it. Matter. It's 7, 5, flatten it. Okay? You're gonna get the same sound, doesn't matter. Right? Here's your D minor, take the 5, flatten it. That's a dominant of a certain key, and you'd have to travel to it, right? And bam, you'll get that. Okay. From you build that tension, it's gotta really somewhere, right? The difference a note will make, right? same thing. Sometimes just a note. Very popular, right? Take your four, go from a major to a minor, back to a one. Like it works, like really, right? And here, this is with the diminished, so this is why you take two or five and you raise them, you'll get two. But if you're playing a minor, all you gotta do is take your five, flatten it. Same thing going on here, right? So that's what I played. Really easy. Some of the movements, it's just kind of the know-how and technical stuff. It gets right. So let me jump out of here. Appreciate you guys. I don't know. Probably delete. I don't think this one is for that book. However, I think I'll leave it up just in case. Oh no. 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 Octavius with the host. I appreciate it, man. How you doing? How you doing? Man, you're gonna make me stay up here. I wanted to go. I don't know, something about this when I play it, the sounds, it's not as clean, so I just omit it. But the same could be said about this. When it's played together, it just doesn't sound as clean. I could do that. Sounds cleaner that way, but when you're playing those together like that, it just doesn't. It's just crazy because this is an F major, but it just sounds weird like that. That sounds a whole lot cleaner and more pleasing to my ear. The other way. Said good to see you live, man. Yeah, I haven't been seeing you like at all. And if I do, I'll see like a notification that you were on, but you're not on. And it's just like, oh man. So hopefully you've been well. You said, oh no, get some rest. I'm gonna get ready to. We talked a pretty good deal about bass, getting the kick in the bass, playing well together, some techniques that can be applied to bass to get like more consistency, more energy from it. A little bit about like panning and kind of playing some stuff and talking what little I know of theory, because I'm still messing with this progression, which I like. And then also kind of bumping into this. Which is another like kind of variation of it, but I've heard that in R&B songs, like classic R&B songs. So between the two, I don't know if I could mix them, should mix them, or It should be its own thing. Right? I would also have to practice this in other keys as well. This would be the three. Yeah, something. We'll figure something out, and we'll we'll put it together. But I've been learning. I've been teaching myself to play jazz, so it's been tough, but it's starting to pay off, right? Thing that I have to get down is I'm not super efficient at it just yet, but it's getting those 2-5-1s down, right? Right? And until I get them down and efficient, kind of like just having to think about it, can just like I one from somewhere, like Kobe, just whoosh, 2-5-1 all net, right? Till I can till I can pull that off. It's it's gonna be challenging, but once I get it down, oh, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. So yeah, let me head out of here. Uh, for like the ninth time. Appreciate you guys stopping by. And let's see, do we have? Let's see what we could do here. I'm almost sure she's gonna. She's probably gonna leave. What time is it? 10. She's probably. Hmm, wait, wait. We have another Octavius. Oh, he popped up on Kick. I was like, wait, there's another. I'm sorry. That kind of threw me off. I just seen the name. I didn't even see the icon. Oh man, but all right, let's go. I don't know if she's gonna be on too much longer, but let's go check her out. All right, we're gonna go check out the Dark Queen right now, and I believe she's playing Diablo 4. Sorry, I don't have anyone that's kind of cranking music right now, but see what happens another time. Maybe we have somebody. Last time we rated somebody, they were making some real fire hip hop, like boom bap beats, and we were vibing. We were vibing. Remember, stay patient, remain diligent, and as always, adjusting. See you guys around.